Welcome to Attainable and Sustainable. I am your host, Devora Goldberg. In this podcast, I guide my listeners through a deeper look into the parallel paradigm of Hollywood love and the Jewish perspective of healthy love and relationships, something which is truly attainable and sustainable for all. Thank you for joining. Welcome to Attainable and Sustainable episode number 3. The topic of today's episode is the journey of my ectopic pregnancy, the non-Hollywood way. Today I'm going to share a personal story with you that took place at the same time of year on the Jewish calendar. It was September 2016 on Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur being the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. And on that particular day, I had been experiencing extreme abdominal pain that had built up over time. Now, the truth is that I was actually experiencing pain for quite a while, but I had downplayed it because it wasn't like I had never had pain before. We all experience pain from time to time. And whatever I was feeling definitely didn't minimize my responsibilities as a wife, as a mom, right? We still all have to make dinner. We got to wash the dishes. Kids have to be tended. And the pain really hadn't been debilitating just yet. I figured whatever it was, it would eventually pass. But a week earlier to this very day that I was experiencing this pain, a week earlier, I was starting to feel a bit more concerned because the pain was getting stronger. So at the time, I booked an appointment with my OBGYN. Now, my complaint when I came into the appointment was I was having pain as well as menstrual spotting. And this spotting was going on for over 5 weeks with no sign of it stopping. So why would menstruation be a concern in terms of it spotting? Right? So we know as menstruation is the time that we have menstruation during the month, but why would spotting be a concern? And it's a great question because as an observant Jewish woman, I follow Jewish law, which guides us. One of the laws that we follow is guidance on how to have a healthy Jewish marriage and relationship. So how does this work? How does it all spell out? As I spoke about in episode 1 called Oprah in the Jewish Bedroom, if you haven't heard it yet, I urge you to check it out. So in that episode, I talk about the fact that Judaism has weaved within the very fabric of our marriage a built-in separation and reunion between husband and wife that takes place every single month. And how does it work? It's dictated by the woman's menstrual cycle. And the way it works is that when the woman menstruates for a minimum of 5 days, and then for the subsequent 7 days, so we're talking about a minimum of 12 days, husband and wife are not to have any sexual intimacy. Yes, they live under the same roof, they eat together, they may even go on vacation together, they're taking care of the family, whatever they're doing. But during this time, Jewish law clearly spells out no sexual activity at this time. And I know, it sounds like one big no, one big restriction. But what is Judaism really telling us here? It's telling us to take a break, reclaim your space, and you'll find how much more you want to have your spouse physically, intimately, as each day passes and you can't have it. You can't have them just yet. The gift that Judaism is giving us is a buildup of healthy, loving emotions that are only to be expressed at the end of the 12-day break. Now, understanding that this is not always the easiest feat, Judaism continues to tell us, we know it's hard not to be sexually active when you're living in the same space as the person who you love So we're going to help you out with this one. Here are some ways to make this time when you're practicing restraint a little bit easier not to slip. For example, if you sleep in your own bed and you don't share it with your spouse, chances are you won't accidentally roll over for a quick cuddle, which may just not end in a quick cuddle. Or if you don't kiss each other during this time, these 12 days, chances are you won't be standing too close to the other, and for this kiss to go any further than just a kiss. And the same for hugs. And again, I fully understand that there are skeptics out there raising their eyebrows right now as they hear my words and probably claiming that this is over the moon exaggeration. I mean, what are spouses there for if we can't be available for a basic hug, a basic kiss on a daily basis, or even just a casual touch? You mean you don't pass the salad at dinner time, they might ask? You don't pat each other on the back? You don't even hold hands with one another? You don't give each other a quick hug goodbye each morning before leaving to work? No, not while menstruating, and not until the following 7 days are over, proving that there's no menstruation continuing to flow, and not until the woman has immersed herself in the holy mikvah waters, because that's what Judaism prescribes for a Jewish marriage practice. Now, this practice, by the way, is for humans to follow, not angels. And I know it sounds cynical, but hear me out. Angels don't get enticed by each other, by one another. But humans do. Humans kiss, and they want more. Humans hug, and they want more. Humans pass the salad bowl. They lightly touch each other's hands, and they want more. They want a longer touch. They want a more intimate touch. And Judaism understands and teaches us that a simple touch can and many times lead to more. A second kiss, a longer hug. It doesn't take much, as we all know, to turn a human on. Yes, man and woman alike. When the true attraction, the love of their life, is sitting right in front of them. When people are dedicated to living this life, they do feel the benefits. They're able to cultivate this time within their marriage of separation from their spouse, and thus they're able to maintain a fire of love for one another. And it gets renewed and it gets re-experienced month after month after month. He is excited to be reunited with her, and she is equally excited to be reunited with him. And yet, at the same time, I want to fully acknowledge that there are different aspects to marriage. There's communication that goes on. There's lots of other aspects, and each person's marriage comes with its own dimensions. What I'm speaking of here is this dimension of sexuality in the marriage and the Jewish perspective of it. And even though it seems like a simple recipe, and even though if we were to grab a hashtag for this, we would probably call it hashtag just take a break, and it seems simple, I want to present the flip side of the coin as well, which is full acknowledgement of the emotions that come along with it. Because it's hard to be separated. It's hard not to express a basic hug or a basic kiss as an expression of love and support, such as what I experienced in my story. So back to my story. It's a week before Yom Kippur, and I'm at the OBGYN's office, and she tells me that the pain that I was experiencing was normal. And so was the spotting. Because in the medical world, it's okay for a woman to spot occasionally without need for concern. Now, in my case, my period had ended a number of weeks before. I already had my 5 days of period, but the spotting continued. I was trying to accomplish a 7 clean day period so I can immerse in the mikveh, but I couldn't get 7 clean days because I kept on spotting. And I would start counting my 7 clean days anew, over and over again, only to stop after a few days, day 2, day 3, day 4, with renewed spotting. And it was problematic. So the doctor tells me, if it's bothering you, why don't you go on a birth control pill? It's going to stop the spotting. It'll make you happy. And I'm thinking, that's not what I'm looking for. I know that I'm coming from a different perspective than what the doctor was aware of, which actually led me to come here in the first place. Meaning, if spotting never presented a problem in marriage, meaning reuniting of husband and wife in a Jewish marriage, so I would have never come in. I would just have let the pain linger for a bit longer. Remember I told you in the beginning, pain doesn't irritate me so much. Life still has to happen. But the spotting was coming in the way of me reuniting with my husband. And I wanted the spotting to stop. It had been over 5 weeks. Again, it was playing on my emotions. It was playing on my husband's emotions. And we both wanted this to be over. And something inside of me felt unsettled. I knew that deep down, a pill wasn't going to fix this. So I thanked the doctor, I politely declined, and I just completely felt unsettled. I knew something was going on, I just didn't know what. Now fast track a week later, the day before Yom Kippur, and the pain had really intensified to a burning pain. My husband happened to be out of town for a few days, a trip that he had planned long before. And I didn't think beforehand that this pain that I was having should or would cause him to cancel his trip and stay home. I told him everything would be okay. So he left, yet that morning I was feeling an intense pain and I decided to drive myself to the ER to get checked out. I asked my bubby, the great-grandmother of my children, my 3 children were at home, and I asked my bubby to come and stay with them. I told her I just had to get checked out. I'm sure everything was going to be fine. I just needed a few hours just to go to the ER and see what was going on. Now, when I got to the ER, they started me off with a blood test, and they asked me to take a seat while I waited for the results. The results came back soon, and they told me, "Ma'am, do you know you're pregnant?" And I said, "Pregnant? How is that even possible? I just had my period a number of weeks ago. Here I am spotting this whole time. How is that even?" No. And they said, "Yes, you're approximately 8 to 10 weeks pregnant." Wow. I was shocked and excited at the same time. I had a precious soul growing inside of me, and it caused me to swell with pride and joy. I rubbed my belly with love and connected for a moment with this little soul that had, unbeknownst to me, growing inside of me all this time. The doctor told me that he was concerned, though, because he wasn't sure what the source of my spotting was. So he sent me for an ultrasound. I called my husband to keep him posted, and he was as shocked and excited and nervous as I was. He told me he was sending me over hugs over the phone, and let him know how the ultrasound goes. It was during the ultrasound that they detected that the baby was resting in my fallopian tube and was growing there. I was experiencing an ectopic pregnancy. And now it all started to make sense. During the ultrasound, they kept on asking me to hold my breath as they took images. What they were trying to do was trying to detect if this little fetus had a heartbeat, which it did. There was a heartbeat. There was a little heartbeat within me, and it caused me to smile once again. The doctor said no more and asked me to wait again for further results. It didn't take long, and within a few minutes, my name was called again to speak to the doctor on call. He told me grimly that the source of my spotting was the baby growing within the fallopian tube, with not much room for growth. And he said that every time the baby grew, more blood flowed. It was only a matter of time that the fallopian tube may burst, creating potential danger to myself. Well, that explained it. Everything clicked into place all at once. I was feeling relieved to understand my why I was experiencing pain and spotting all this time. And then the doctor continued, and he told me that if the baby wouldn't have had a heartbeat, they would be able to help the fetus pass with a simple injection. But because the baby had a heartbeat, they would need to remove it surgically, and they had to act fast. Well, I tried reasoning with the doctor. I said, can I schedule the surgery for 2 days' time after Yom Kippur is over? All the while thinking, I got my kids at home, they need me, my husband's out of town, what's going to happen? Of course not, they said. Do you understand that this is an emergency? We're getting you into surgery as soon as we can. Oh, and by the way, when was the last time you ate? Because there's no food from now until after surgery. My mind was working overtime. I was pregnant, but not for long. There was a heartbeat, but it can't be sustained. I need to go home for Yom Kippur to be with my children. They're waiting for me. My husband is away, and only I can be there for them. Emotions overwhelmed me all at once. I needed to be strong for myself, for my children, for this baby within me. And yet, I needed the support as well. And this was a lot to process all on my own. I called my husband and cried my tears freely. He was there with me, yet miles apart, and nothing he could do. Yet he listened, offered his own words of support, and then we had to hang up. The flood of emotions overcame me. There was so much happening all at once. And clearly nothing was going according to any bit of scheduling or organizing on my part. God was clearly orchestrating it all. Oh, did I need a hug from my husband? Oh, did I need his embrace? This was his child as well. And it won't be long until this child will be our angel. Yet putting my emotions aside, I knew I needed to spring into action. I called my bubby, who was lovingly watching my kids that morning, and explained the situation to her. I knew she wasn't able to watch the kids while fasting for 24 hours. I needed the kids to spend time with family. I needed the kids to get packed up. So I called my parents. That was the next phone call, and I explained with tears stuck in my throat that I needed my kids to spend Yom Kippur with them. And they said, okay. I called my kids next. And I spoke with them with feigned strength, explaining that Ima has a little boo-boo and the doctors were going to fix it. Bubby and Zadie were going to take good care of them, and we were going to speak again after Yom Kippur was over. I sent them hugs and kisses over the phone and then hung up. And with that, I was alone with my thoughts, with my baby, connecting until its short time on earth, or at least growing within me, was to be over. Come with me, little Neshamala, I sang, and let me hold you in my hand, and we'll fly away, you and I together, to a place above the land. Clearly, this was God's plan, and I decided to surrender. As the afternoon wore on, and I was aware of my fellow Jews getting ready to eat their pre-fast meal, I went within. I rubbed my belly, which started to burn with pain once again, and I rubbed the area where my baby was sitting in my fallopian tube. I basked in my task of housing this precious soul for this short period of time, and mourned the fact that we would be separated so soon. Tears of pain, joy, motherly love, and separation, all mixed up and salted all as one. At last, not long after Yom Kol Nidre was recited in shuls across the city, I was prepped for surgery. With my hand still rubbing my belly, I drifted off into induced sleep, while my baby's neshama was returned to its maker. I spent post-operation the next day resting in my hospital bed, feeling terribly empty and alone. Understanding that it was God's will didn't take away the feelings of missing what could have been, but wasn't meant to be. The moment Yom Kippur was over, my husband was on his first flight back home. We were reunited with tears of emotion, me still in pain, yet happy to be alive and grateful that the doctors were able to save me in my situation. Yet our physical reunion still had to wait. My husband and I still did not hug, or kiss, or even rub on the back. We still had to wait. The doctor said no sexual activity for another 4 weeks until my post-op appointment. My wait to immerse in the mikvah continued. And it was hard. It was really hard. My husband and I missed each other so much, and we spoke about this challenge with each other. It just didn't seem humanly possible. Living under the same roof with such intense love for each other and going through all this pain, but not being able to express it fully. And yet, we acknowledged Hashem's bigger plans and remained faithful to what was unfolding. We remained faithful to his master plan, again, for a successful and loving relationship. Thankfully, we did get through it with support, with compassion, and with love. And, it's moments like this where my husband and I look back in retrospect in awe of Judaism and the guidelines that it sets out for us. In awe for each other, for what we both went through, and for a renewed level of love and understanding that this journey had taught us both. Thank you so much for listening. I want to take this time to bless you that this Yom Kippur, in just a few short days, will bring you a signed and sealed fate of a healthy, wealthy, happy, and sweet new year ahead. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are loving the Attainable and Sustainable podcast, I would love if you could do 2 things for me before continuing your day. Number 1, subscribe to this podcast to ensure that you never miss an episode. And number 2, please rate and leave your review so that others like yourself will be able to find this podcast and enjoy it as well. And finally, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know your feedback, your comments, your questions, your aha moments, or even something that you need further clarity on. See you at the next episode.